Today I'm talking to Gerard Batten, who's a member of the European Parliament for London. He's with the UK Independence Party, which is a Eurosceptic party, and he's recently announced his intention to stand for leadership of UKIP. Gerard Batten, thanks very much for talking to RT.
You're welcome, Rob. Can I just put you right on one small point in your introduction? You described us as a Eurosceptic party. I'm afraid that's not true. Scepticism implies some doubt. We have absolutely no doubt. We're 100% certain that membership of the European Union is bad for Britain, so we're not sceptical about that at all.
And no disbelief in the fact that the European Union actually exists?
Oh, we believe it exists. I mean, we're sceptical about life after death, but as far as the European Union exists, and it's bad, and there is no doubt in any UKIP member's mind that that's the case.
And tell me about the platform on which you're standing for leadership.
I decided to run again because, first of all, I've had quite a lot of people ring me, send me email messages asking me to run again. I came second in the election last year. And my platform is that I want UKIP to go forward as a radical alternative to the kind of cross-party consensus that we've got in this country from Labour, Conservative, Lib Dems, and very much now with the coalition government, that they're quite happy to see this country become nothing more than a colony of the European Union. So I want radical policies. This is what I represented to the members last time. I got 26% of the vote, and I think I'm going to do a lot better this time.
And what are the key tenets of your opposition to the European Union?
Well, first of all, it's an economic and democratic disaster. First of all, there is no reason for the European Union. I mean, the way was sold to people 40 years ago and has been ever since, is that we must have it for trade and jobs. We don't need it for trade and jobs. Even the European Union has backed down from that argument. What we need is trade with Europe and the rest of the world, friendship and cooperation. We don't need to be members of this vast bureaucratic organisation in order to achieve that. The other thing is the loss of democracy, which, although membership of the EU costs us billions of pounds every year, which is wasted money, what's actually worse than that is our loss of democracy. The Germans calculated in 2006 that about 83% of new laws now come from the European Union, not from their own Parliament. And in this report they questioned whether Germany could really be called a functioning democracy anymore because of this fact. Well, it's equally true for the UK, similar type of country. 80-odd% of our laws now come from the institutions of the EU, which is not democratic. So how can we be a democracy? And as you know, I've been involved in things like the integration of the legal systems and European arrest warrants. We're losing our most basic protections under the law against unjust imprisonment and arrest. All kinds of things are happening now, which are totally insupportable in my view. And the European Union has this ambition to become a superstate to rival the United States. And I think it's in a very wrong road for us to go down, and Britain should leave as soon as possible.
We are living in a globalised world, though. Is it possible for the UK to just step out of the EU?
But what does that mean? What does a globalised world mean? In the early 19th century, we actually exported more goods around the world than we do today. There was international trade then. That's nothing new. That's always been going on. It's much easier to get on an aeroplane now and go anywhere you like very quickly, which is one of the reasons we have such a problem with uncontrolled immigration. That kind of globalisation, yeah, it's a reality, but that doesn't mean to say that you have to sacrifice your independence and self-governance in the modern world. In fact, quite the opposite. I think the problem with the modern world is that people are losing their control over their elected representatives and their governments, and we're becoming less democratic, and I think that's a thoroughly bad thing.
And in terms of the UK's economy, could we afford to leave the European Union?
But we're not a small country. In economic terms, I think we've come down the table a bit, but not that long ago we were the fourth largest economy in the world. I think we may have come down to fifth or sixth now because France has gone up and China's coming way up the league. But we're a very big economy, both in terms of our gross domestic product, the overall size of the economy, and we're still one of the world's chief exporters of goods and services. And, of course, we're the world's biggest financial capital. So we're not a small country, and even if we were, there are small countries like Norway and Switzerland which have a higher per capita wealth and income, which are not members of the European Union, than the countries that are. And in fact, look, you know, Singapore, Japan, America, they don't need to be members of the EU in order to trade and be wealthy. So why should we? The European Union is built on a number of completely false premises about why it should exist, which are easily demolished.
You have said in the past that the EU is an illegal state. Can you explain what you meant by that?
Yes, because under the Lisbon Treaty, it basically became the constitution of the European Union. Now, I know they changed the name. It was called the Constitution, but it's 99.9% the same as the old Constitution. We have a Constitution in this country, written down in different places, like, for example, the 1689 Bill of Rights, which says that the sovereign is the font of all power, and the sovereign cannot not acknowledge a higher power. Now, whether you're a monarchist or a republican, it doesn't matter. That's our constitution. What we did with the Lisbon Treaty is we acknowledged officially a higher authority. The Union, for example, now has a legal personality of its own. It can make treaties on its own. So that, in fact, means that in Britain we are living under an illegally constituted government. And as far as the rest of Europe's concerned, it's illegal in my view because they didn't ask the people of Europe whether they wanted it or not, because when they had referenda on the old constitution, they lost them in France and Holland. The only countries that voted for it are the ones that get, you know, so much out of the EU budget that they didn't want to risk leaving. So in my view, we're living in a completely illegally constituted state. In Britain, the Constitution of Europe under the Lisbon Treaty is illegal, and this is a very dangerous road to go down.
One of your former colleagues has accused the coalition that you belong to in the European Union of harbouring extremist views. What's UKIP doing to make sure that those views don't have a place in the 21st century? In
the group that we sit in, the EFD group, Europe, Freedom and Democracy, and in the previous one that we sat in, the Independence and Democracy group, it's part of our constitution. And we have a very simple constitution which says that we are a non-racist, non-sectarian organisation. So that's covered. I mean, we're sitting in a group purely for procedural purposes. The only thing that unites that group is a belief that the whole system has gone too far. We're withdrawalists, other people like the Italians are reformers, so we cover a wide brief there. Everybody votes according to their own consciences. We wouldn't sit in a group with people who, like the BNP for example, we wouldn't touch them with a 10-foot pole, but I think it is a gross exaggeration to say that we've got extremists in our group, because let's say certain members of their party back home had said something which, you know, our former member doesn't approve of. Well, every party in every country has got people that say stupid things at certain times. So I think that's an unfounded allegation.
At the same time, though, UKIP in certain quarters is accused of fanning the flames of nationalism. I'm thinking particularly of your invitation to Dutch politician Geert Wilders to come to London, which caused quite a lot of trouble in the streets during his visit. What do you say to those claims?
We're nationists. We believe in the nation. We believe in the democratic sovereign state as the best way to govern affairs in a country, and in a country that wants to be a country. You know, the United Kingdom is 3 different countries and Northern Ireland that actually want to be part of a union, and while people want that, it works, and other countries work on a different basis of what constitutes a nation. As for Geert Wilders, he didn't cause any trouble at all. Geert Wilders is a democratic politician, democratically elected, who is not an extremist, if you actually bother to look. He's actually defending liberal democracy against extremists. The people who were causing the trouble outside of the House of Commons, because I went outside afterwards because I had lunch with Mr Wilders and other people on that day, were the extreme left, who were verbally attacking the English Defence League, who had nothing to do with Geert Wilders either, who were on the other side of the street. So, as usual, it was the extreme left who was stirring up the trouble and trying to cause violence and confrontation. Some unscrupulous commentators have then accused Mr Wilders of extremism, which is totally untrue. I've met Mr Wilders on a number of occasions. I wouldn't have anything to do with him if I thought he was an extremist. But I think he's actually a heroic person. At the risk of his own life, he lives under 24-hour police protection. I went out for dinner with him in The Hague, and we had 4 armed police officers sitting next to the next table. And why is that? It's because he's trying to defend the democratic, liberal values of Western society against Islamic fundamentalist extremists who want to overthrow that and introduce Sharia law and Islamic fundamentalism in Western countries.
You are UKIP's party spokesman on immigration. What's your view on a cap on immigration into the UK?
Immigration into our country has been out of control for a very long time now. Purely on the numbers basis, we are about the most densely populated country in Europe, I think slightly behind Holland, and you can take Malta out because it's a special case. We are one of the most densely populated countries in the world, if you actually look on a league table, and yet our population is set to grow from 62 million currently up to 70 million within the next 20-odd years, and thereafter up to 80, 85 million exponentially. It is absolutely absurd to have effectively unlimited and uncontrolled immigration into this country, what we have anyway from within the European Union, when we can't stop people coming, even if you wanted to, and we don't really control it from outside either. So, yes, you have to have very strict controls. The time has come to say we need an end to mass immigration, we need controlled immigration on a very limited level, and only where it benefits Britain, its people and its economy.
A recent report has shown that with a cap on immigration, British companies might find themselves short of workers, particularly as some immigrant workers are more highly skilled than their British counterparts. What do you say to that?
Oh yes, I mean, I know quite a lot of foreign people, especially from Eastern Europe, who come to work here. They're highly qualified, they've got a great work ethic, they're lovely people. But if you look at the number of jobs created in the economy, 98% of the jobs created since Labour came to power in '97 up until last year went to migrant labour. Now, how does it benefit your economy to create jobs and 98% of them go to people, you know, who are migrants? You increase the overall gross domestic product of a country, but you're actually driving down the wages of the indigenous workers because people are coming in and working for lower wages. So you drive the overall the wages down for indigenous people, you put housing prices up, so everybody's actually worse off in the long run. And of course big business loves immigration because they get cheap labour. That's what they want. So I don't have anything against people who want to come here and better their lives. I fully understand why they want to do that. But it doesn't benefit the British economy or the British people to have this kind of immigration. What we would introduce would be very, very limited immigration for permanent settlement. And I've suggested a figure of no more than 50,000 a year, and even that could be revised downwards. But people could still come to work on a job permit basis for 1, 2, 3 years if we can't fill